Another one we'd say was, an underused devil fruit and a weak character would be Bellamy, the guy with the spring. I don't know how you pronounce it. Spring fruit, whatever. It made him have like springs on his arms and legs, pretty much.
I completely agree. That is the other character that really comes to mind, especially when it comes to Paramecia's. Bellamy, yeah, he was a dick. Yeah, he got one-shotted by Luffy also. It's sort of the same, sad tale. His power just seems so cool to me. I would have loved to see him just cock back and, like, throw a spring punch, you know?
He just talked shit, bounced around, and then got owned.
Seriously. He had some cool ideas, Spring Hopper was kind of meh, but I mean, it gained momentum and stuff for a big attack, which turned out like shit. But he's got Spring Snipe, it's like a mix between long range and close range. You prepare for the attack long range, you aim, you get in there really fast, so it's difficult for them to counter, but then of course you get physical by trying to punch them or kick them or do whatever. I really would have loved to see his ability used more. I think that if he were as strong as someone like Luffy, who has as much, base power, non-Devil Fruit related as Luffy, the fruit could, really shine.
I mean, he could have held, like, rocks and just, like, spring shot them and been a sniper. Like, he could have done anything, and he didn't.
That would be genius. I mean, he could have launched, teammates, he could have used it for very, big other utilizing fashions.
Yeah.
I mean, his crew pretty much sucked.
Yeah.
He had Sarkis, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Wanted Doflamingo.
Yeah, pretty much. But I would say another underused character or underused devil fruit would be Alvida, old fatty from before who turned, gorgeous with the slip fruit, which allows her skin to be slippery smooth, which allows attacks and herself to slide off things.
Her ability, it might not sound very useful, but as far as we know, it really seems like other than hockey, she doesn't have many hard counters. I mean, maybe, I don't know exactly how far Oda plans to extend it. Maybe, like, if Kizaru shot a light beam at her, could she make light slip off her? Could she make, a magma punch from a Kainu slip off her?
Because if that is her power to allow anything to slip off her, she's actually pretty broken.
Yeah, I mean, other than hockey nullifying her Devil Fruit ability, other than, Blackbeard's Darkness Fruit, which we'll get into later, there's not a lot of hard counters. I mean, we've already seen that bullets deflect off her, sword slashes, deflect off her. It's hard to say. I wouldn't really call it an underused ability yet, because we haven't seen enough. Her character hasn't as much face time. As far as we know, she hasn't been beaten by anybody since she gained the fruit.
Yeah.
So I'm not too sure if I would call it underused yet. I would say it's a fruit with a lot of potential that, could definitely be something difficult to deal with.
Yeah, okay. What else? What else do we got?
My personal favorite character of the series, Trafalgar Law, definitely appears to have a Paramecia fruit, what I would guess is a Room fruit.
Mm-hmm.
It's very obscure at this point as to exactly what it lets him do. It seems like it lets him, create areas of space to which he can control the masses in said space. Maybe that's not the best way to say it, but that's kind of how it seems.
Yeah, he just, and then uses his hands. It seems like it uses, like, a good bit of concentration, but he can use his hands or the sword slice or whatever and just rearrange body parts or anything even, not even body parts, just any object in that space.
Exactly. It definitely seems like it creates, a domain under which he has significant influence. So I definitely think that's very cool. It's very Yu Yu Hakusho-esque after the Dark Tournament. I don't know if any of you guys watched it.
But the only thing I'm going to say about it is while it is extremely cool and useful, I mean, isn't it just totally beaten by Doflamingo's fruit?
Doflamingo's fruit, that is definitely another big Paramecia name. Kind of weird. I mean, what do you mean?
I mean, because we don't know much about it, but doesn't it seem like kind of like puppetry or complete controlling of a body? I don't know if you have to touch them or if you just have to, do some Spider-Man stuff or whatever. I don't know exactly how it works, but he could...
go ahead.
I was just saying, he could chop off a giant's leg instantly, and I definitely think, Law can do it, but I think he'd have to set up his room and then use a sword or something,
So you're saying you think Flamingo's fruit is a counter to Law's fruit?
Not a counter, just almost a step up, almost like, Law and then just above it.
Okay, we don't know too much about Doflamingo's fruit as of now. I would agree with what you said. It does seem to be a puppeteer type fruit. More specifically, you could even say it's it doesn't necessarily have to be the act of, meaning puppeteering or whatever. It could be something more simple that he just has great mastery over, like a string or a wire fruit.
Yeah, that's true.
I definitely think no matter what it is, whether it's puppeteer or wire or whatever. Well, I mean, the wire or whatever it is seems to be invisible unless it's just really, really thin. They're pulling that kind of thing. I definitely think there is something tangible or seemingly tangible there, though, because it let him cut off the giant's leg. That's how I interpreted it. I guess he sliced it off with his wire or string or whatever manipulative, thing he uses to connect his hands or whatever it may be to his subject.
Mm-hmm.
The thing, though, that I would say, we don't know at this point. The range.
It might be a 1-to-1 thing. He can control one person at a time. If that's the case in a small area, we definitely know Law can control all body parts in that area or all objects in that area.
I was going to actually make that point, but then if my memory serves me correctly, of course, he used that on both Bellamy and Sarkis.
I think you're right, but
so
they might just been really weak. Like maybe he can control one strong person at a time or something. We don't know anything about it. We can't really.
We don't know how much resistance plays a part in it. Although I would think if he could control someone like both Buffalo Atmos and Diamond Jaws, separately, that resistance maybe doesn't play as huge of a part in it. Like once you're kind of captured, it might actually work for a certain duration or whatever the case may be. I mean, I'm sure resistance plays some part of it. But dodging the initial connection is serious. For all we know, it could have a 2-person limitation because he has 2 hands.
Yeah, I mean, but while we're on it, what about Jaws? Jaws has the power of turning his whole body into diamond, which is the strongest mineral. No, what is it? Strongest material, strongest element. No, not element. Periodic chart of the elements. I don't know what it's strong. It's hard as fuck.
It's tough shit. We don't know exactly. There's no conversion chart that says, Jaws is diamond stronger than Kuma steel. Is it stronger than Woot steel?
I think
it's stronger than Atom wood.
I mean, it stopped a Mihawk, right? It stopped a Mihawk slash.
Now, see, that's something a lot of people bring up. But while we're on that note, I don't really like using that as a comparison because we don't know how strong that slash was. I mean, when Mihawk did that, he even said, "Let's just see how big the distance is between me and Whitebeard." The way he says it, it's implied, not literal not actual distance as a tangible thing, but strength-wise.
I don't know, man. Maybe he was measuring, how many meters away Whitebeard is. Is he 20? Yeah. Is he 30 away? Just trying to use it as a tape measure.
This slash will die out in 50 meters.
Yeah, so you just did that thing, but yeah, I mean, I guess that makes sense. So you might not have been putting any kind of real weight or power behind it.
Yeah, we don't know at this point, so I feel uncomfortable saying that, especially because from what we've seen with Zoro versus, Mr. One, who has a fruit of a similar sort, just of a lower grade or caliber or whatever, it didn't really matter how strong Zoro's attack was. It was about, was he on the right channel, wavelength? Was he on the right breadth? So for all we know, Mihawk just fired a slash, and he's like, okay, Diamond Joe's whatever, he's Diamond. So now the next slash I fire, which could be of the exact same strength, but on a different, wavelength.
Yeah, it'd have to be really strong, but you're right. He could just pull out the old, super strong, now I'm on the right wavelength as Diamond, which would be really hard, which would make him the best swordsman in the world, which he is.
Exactly. So, we don't really know at this point. And, gosh, it's very irrelevant. But it almost makes me want to bring up the fact. Oh, no, never mind, I won't say it. But anyway.
No, go on. What were you going to say?
Well, it just. Whenever I hear, Mihawk being the strongest swordsman in the world, which he is, we don't really know when he gained that title. It's implied he gained it in the last 20 years.
Yeah.
Well, sort of, in my eyes, it's implied that at least. I mean, since Mihawk just trained Zoro, I kind of. It seems to me like Mihawk's going to get beat by somebody, and then Zoro's going to have to beat that person. And based on the fact that Blackbeard seems like the final boss, the most notable person to beat to fill that niche would be Shiryu, which would make sense because he's been in Impel Down all this time. So who's to say Shiryu's not a better swordsman than Mihawk because Mihawk could have gained the title while Shiryu was in jail?
I mean, that's such a good point that you brought up. That's not something I'm sure no one's thought of. I didn't think of that. The only reason that hurts me is because it's always been Zoro's goal, and you kind of want them to see their goals realized. So you're right. Maybe eventually he'll beat Mihawk. I'm pretty sure. Actually, I'm almost 100% sure. Eventually, he will fight Mihawk 1-on-1 and win. I think, at least myself. But you're right. Shiryu might be a better guy after that. So
We
That's
don't really know. I mean, it's been a very, very much anticipated fight, which is why I really didn't like it, to be honest, when Mihawk trained Zoro. I don't really like that progression of Zoro's, development. But we'll see what Oda does with it. He hasn't really let me down on anything big before.
yeah.
So,
In
back
your,
to Devil Fruits.
yeah, back to Devil Fruits. Let's see. I think another notable one we haven't really talked about because we don't know a whole lot about is Sengoku.
That is definitely true. I mean, as we started off this discussion, we named some of the more powerful characters that had Paramecias, not necessarily the fruit itself, and Sengoku definitely fits the bill, being a fleet admiral, or ex-fleet admiral in this case. So his fruit appears to be the Buddha Buddha no Mi. We don't really know at this point, but it appears to be that. He can transform into a Buddha-like statue.
We don't know what it does because actually it was super lame in the fight because Luffy just kind of bypassed it.
Yeah, that was really weird. It's so difficult because Luffy has plot armor.
Yeah.
He's the main character. He's the protagonist. The story kind of has to revolve in such a way that it'll work out for him. So I don't really feel too comfortable, judging characters on the fact they didn't stop Luffy.
Yeah.
With that logic, we could even say, oh, the vice admirals must be shit because they couldn't stop Luffy at any lobby.
Yeah.
I mean, like saying things like that because Luffy had to get out of there. There was obvious plot armor.
No, sorry, I was just laughing when you said, Luffy has plot armor, things have to work out for him. Work out like he gets his brother free and then gets immediately killed. That didn't work so well for him.
Yeah, I know. Exactly. Yeah. Okay. His goals do not always get accomplished, but
he has plot armor.
I know such a way that. Yeah.
No, I know what you mean. Like he's pretty much immune, but other people around him maybe are not so much.
Yeah, plot armor definitely allows ricocheting.
Yeah. Who else did you want to talk about?
Mr. 3, Mr. 2, Mr. 1. Well, since we already talked about Jaws, might as well say Mr. 1. His fruit appears to be, of the same type. It's weird. They call it, what is it, the slicing fruit?
Yeah, something.
It seems like it should just be the steel fruit, but they don't say that.
It's the Scyther fruit.
Oh, totally.
Scyther!
Pokemon buff.
Well, I'm just I'm eating an apple.
Oh. One notable thing, though, that we don't know yet because we didn't see too much from Jaws, but Mr. 1's fruit, although it does seem to be of a lower caliber defensively, implied by the story itself, when Mr. 1 even said, what are you going to try cutting next, Diamond? Implying that Diamond is of a harder material. But Mr. 1's fruit seems to have more offensive potential at this point. He makes blades, he makes the, twisting blades around his arm, which was better exemplified in movie 8 or 9, whatever the Alabasta remake was. Things like that. The fact of the matter is, though, it's implied that Jaws has hockey, and I just naturally assume that Mr. 1 doesn't at this point. So, offensively, I think Mr. 1's fruit might even have a greater potential. I don't know if Jaws can make blades out of diamond or anything like that.
It seemed like on Jaws, it was just all around him. I think technically, according to the Devil Fruit, he probably should be able to do the same thing Mr. 1 could, but I don't think he will because Oda wants a difference in characters, probably.
Yeah, from what we've seen, it seems just like solidification of his body. But we don't even know how much we'll see of Jaws in the future, or the Whitebeard Pirates, but I guess that's a matter of a different kind.
Yeah. What about... Oh, you're talking about Mr. 2 and Mr. 3.
Oh, yeah.
Mr. 2, who has a kind of weak fighting. Actually, it is a pretty weak fighting. I mean, he can touch his face, touch other people's face, and transform into them. He has, perfect memory recall of their face and their voice and their body features, which is extremely useful when he copies Nami. But other than that, great undercover agent, great utility Devil Fruit, but fighting strength, he's not going to beat Whitebeard with his Devil Fruit. We know that.
I completely agree. And I mean, this is something that we don't know exactly how it would play with a different character in mind. For example, let's say Nami had it. If she transformed into a big buff guy, would that help her, fighting wise? Maybe, maybe not. We don't know too much about it. But as for Mr. 2, Bon Clay, his fighting style being, what's it called?
Kamakempo.
Kamakempo. It requires his very sleek body, his, ballet style stuff that he, said in the story he can't really do with another person's body.
Yeah, so we don't know a whole lot about it. I would just say it is an interesting Devil Fruit, but not the strongest, even in utility, I would say.
Yeah, even in utility, there are others that work better, but I mean, we've seen how it's helped with things like, of course...
Ruining a country, things like that.
Ruining a country, helping them escape Impel Down, things like that.
Yeah.